Ready to sauce up your wings, brisket, and veggies? Try Georgia May's Buffalo Wing Sauce and Georgia May's Garlic Hot Sauce. Our do-it-all sauces make meal prep quick, convenient, and fun. The smooth finish of our delicious buffalo sauce coats every wing evenly, delivering a flavor-packed bite every single time. Try dipping for even more flavor. Our garlic hot sauce brings any dish to the next level. Shop online at bdscaters.com.
What's up, and welcome to the Duval Sports 4th and Goal podcast. Man, we're back once again. We have Chandler, myself, ready to talk some football, man. We've been crisscrossing Northeast Florida. And, man, Chandler, man, you saw a lot of games in the last 7 days, man.
Yep. So I saw St. Augustine versus Bartram on Friday. Then on Monday I saw Trinity versus Separate Hills.
Yeah, and then you like squeeze a baseball game in there too, man. I mean, how you find time to do all that, man?
I squeezed the baseball game in there and also shot some pictures for St. John's volleyball as well. So been busy.
Man, you can catch all of that. Where's Home podcast, man. Check it out. Right, Twitter, Instagram, man, and the drone shot, man. Oh, the Trinity drone shot, man. Y'all gotta check it out.
That was cool. That was hard to do. I just picked up a drone last weekend and then I flew it out on Monday. First time flying it. That probably took about an hour to figure out a 2-second video, but yeah, it turned out great.
So if you are at Fleming Island and Middleburg, listen, it's gonna be some sweet shots, man. So
yeah, for sure.
Check it out with Chandler. So speaking of sweet, so we just got through talking about playing our sponsor, Georgia Made Sauce. Make sure you get the sauce, man. The orders have been happening. Thank you so much, Georgia Maize, for sponsoring us. And the Duval Sports Player of the Week, sponsored by Georgia Maize, is none other than this man that you've seen, Demir Jackson, last week against Terry Parker. He rushed for 218 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. He has 9 rushing touchdowns on the season and 825 rushing yards in just 7 games. So, man, he went for 200 against a team, Chandler, that really has been playing well. You know, talk to us about Demir. You've actually seen him, up close, right?
Yeah, so I've seen him 3 times. Tomorrow will be the 4th time. Every time he's a very good athlete. Every game you can tell he comes out there, works hard all week for practice, comes out there and does his thing. I mean, if you look at his overall stats, he's had 84 carries, 825 yards. He averaged like a 9.8 every time. And then if you have a guy like that, and you also have a quarterback like his, Sebastian Broughton, that can run the ball as well, those two right there is a 1-2 double punch, and he really balled out. And then we can't forget about the wide receiver Trace Burney. I saw his stats. I think Trace Burney. I saw his stats when they played Terry Parker. I believe it was 4 touchdowns or something along those lines. If you have guys like that on the field, it's going to be pretty efficient. And then I think Middleburg's going to see all of that tomorrow.
Yeah. Trace won the Jaguars player of the week for his 4 touchdowns. You're right. And man, but whenever you can rush for 200, you get a player of the week. And we're seeing him right here, man. This is his mid-season, highlights. You actually covered a lot of his, games. He has a bruising running style, but he can take it to the house too.
Exactly. Yep. He can do both, and that's pretty good. Just like Sebastian, he can do both. He can throw the ball, he can run the ball. If you have guys like that, I mean, that's pretty crazy. And then I'm looking at his receiving stats right now. He has 142 yards receiving, and if you can do both, and that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, man. That's impressive right there, man. That really is impressive. So, congratulations, Demir. the Duval Sports Player of the Week, sponsored by Georgia Maize. You got the sauce, man. 218 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. You got the sauce. So, all of our players of the week will be getting sauce from Georgia Maize at the end of the season. So we're real excited about that. So, all right. So we're gonna preview some games. We've got some big games coming up. Some games that's gonna decide the district. But let's review some of the games that we did last week, Chandler. So let's start with the St. John's granddaddy of them all, St. Augustine versus Bartram, man. I mean, what did you see there?
It was kind of a close game here at halftime. The St. Augustine came out with the 48-21 win, and Lachlan Hewlett. That's the first time I actually seen St. Augustine play, and they did really impress me. I think it might be one of the best teams I have covered, in my opinion. At least that game was. You got a guy like Carl Johnson on one end having 2 touchdowns. I think it was 1 or 2 touchdowns that night, and then I think it's Samoran Wingo or something like that. You have another
Yeah,
guy.
Carl Jenkins and
Yes.
Samarion.
Yeah, Wingo.
Mm-hmm.
And you have 2 guys on the field just like that, and then you got a good quarterback like Lachlan. I mean, I think Bartram figured out what they were doing, and then they scored that many points. And they came out the second half. It was kind of a rainy night, weird night, on and off rain, pouring rain, and but St. Augustine figured it out, and they did their job.
Yeah, man. It's always fun watching those 2 teams, because those 2 teams always put up points, and it just seemed like it just went back and forth for a while until St. Augustine just kind of pulled away. We're gonna take a look at the website here. So this is duvalsports.com, everybody. If you haven't been to the website, this is it. This is where we do our coverage and put the stories right here. This sweet picture right here, taken by Chandler. So, yeah, man. So this was a great game that you covered. Talk about Arthur Lewis the fourth, man. He is just racking it up. After this game, he was second in Northeast Florida in rushing and tied for first in touchdown. Did you get to see Arthur Lewis? Yeah.
Sorry, I keep going in and out there, but yeah, Arthur Lewis, 3 touchdowns that night. I mean, he gets the ball, he does his job. I think he had, what was it, over 100 yards that game.
Yeah.
Arthur Lewis did do his job, and then the offense kind of struggled a little bit with a few fumbles that game. I think that kind of separated the game against St. Augustine. But Arthur Lewis, he did his thing and had 3 touchdowns, over 100 yards. So that was a pretty good game for him, but not the outcome they wanted for the team.
Yeah. It really wasn't the one that they wanted. But I mean, he's really putting up some crazy numbers, and it's real good to see that Arthur Lewis is really making some headways. He's already rushed for like 1,200 yards rushing in eight games.
Yeah,
I think he's got 14 touchdowns on the year.
Yeah, he's a junior as well. He still has 1 more year to ball out and do his thing.
Oh wow, yeah. So, that is that's not the end of Arthur Lewis. that we will see. So Saint Augustine gets the win, and their next biggest test will be up against Mandarin.
Yeah.
That'll be a really big game for them. They have Ridgeview this week, and then they'll have Mandarin next week. I am really anticipating that game. After seeing Saint Augustine, do you feel like they match up real well with Mandarin?
I say so. I mean, if you look at Mandarin, I think they've had some troubles. I mean, if you look at the final score last week against Fletcher, 8-0, some things going on with the offense. I think St. Augustine will have a good matchup, and I think it'll be a pretty good game against Mandarin.
Yeah, yeah. Mandarin is kind of struggling right now. It's kind of up in the air with their offense. They've got questions at quarterback. We're hearing that they might even experiment a little bit at quarterback, right? So, so I mean, we're not going to drop any coaching hints on the show right now, but you heard it here first, man. It might be a little shake up at a quarterback for Mandarin. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we preview Mandarin and Oakleaf. You also saw Trinity Christian. I mean, what did you think about them this week?
That's the first time I covered Trinity, and I mean they came out with a 47-14 win. At halftime, it was tied 14-14, but then they came out. I mean, I don't really know who Zephyr Hills is, but I mean their offense couldn't really get it going. I think they had one kickoff return, a 97-yarder. They kind of got the offense going right before the half to tie it up. They're switching between quarterbacks Terrell Dallas and Hicks Czar throughout the whole game. I think both had 2 touchdowns, and then Lennox Hires actually had the tight end for Trinity had 2 touchdowns as well, and then last name Hicks had 2 touchdowns as well. Marquez Hicks. So seeing them in that game, I mean they kind of had a slow start in the first half, and then kind of put it on them the second half, and came out with a big win, 47-14.
So yeah, just an all around game for a lot of players. That's kind of how Trinity's been using their players this year. I saw them against Ed White earlier. Just like you said, subbing in Hicks and subbing in Dallas, and I'm glad the tight end got involved too. I mean that's a big weapon for them as well. So, and then of course they always play lights out defense. So Trinity in District 1A-2. All they got to do is beat Kip, and they'll be district champions. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, let me go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just saying that Trinity, they've already beat Episcopal. They've already beat, North Florida, Education Institute, and they just got Kip to beat, and then they'll be district champions. So Trinity is headed to the playoffs. Once again, even though this is a down year for them at 5-3. So kudos to Coach Dormany and everybody over there off of Hammond for another trip to the playoffs. And they're just getting better and better, stronger and stronger. And it's really good to see a young team really develop into a good one. And it sounds like they were looking pretty strong against Zephyr Hills.
Yeah, definitely they were.
All right, so let's talk about some of the games tonight. There are some finals here. Ponte Vedra beat IMG White 27-14. So Ponte Vedra, that's a team that improves to 7-2 on the season. They're 3-1 in the district, so they just have a game against Creekside. One of the teams that we've covered. That game will be next week. So after kind of a slow start, I mean they lost to Nice to start the season. Then they lost to Fleming Island kind of, in the middle. But Ponte Vedra has won 4 in a row. They're on fire.
Yeah.
They've defeated Leesburg, Middleburg, Orange Park, and now IMG White.
Which pretty big win tonight.
Yeah, and then their district foe, Beachside, defeated Orange Park tonight, 48-20. So Beachside is another team. They improved to, I believe they improved to, let me see. I think they lost, is it 2 games?
They lost
they
to, I believe they lost to Fleming.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
Yeah, 2 games. So they are 7-2. 7-2. You're right. They lost to Fleming, and then they lost to Ponte Vedra earlier. So, so great. I mean, great job by Beachside. You know, they're doing really good. They're not going to be district winners, but the playoffs are definitely in plain view for them. And next week we'll do our playoff, scenarios. Look at all the teams who have made the playoffs already and what teams need to make them. But and you've seen Beachside, already.
Yeah, I saw Beachside when they played Fleming Island. I think that was a pretty big loss for Beachside. Fleming Island came out and played.
Yeah, how did they look against Fleming? Do you think that they look like a playoff team? Because Fleming, of course, is a district champion now.
Yeah, so I feel like their offense couldn't get it going that day. I think that was a Monday night game, so kind of a weird thing that's been going on this year. A lot of Monday night games. Well, Fleming's defense is really, really, really good, so it's kind of hard for the Beachside to get their offense going if it's not working against that Fleming Island defense, and then that would be a problem. But I think they will be a playoff team.
All right, let's preview a couple games and get on out of here. So the first game that we'll preview is Ed White and Riverside. This is a rivalry, a West Side rivalry that is always very intense. Ed White comes into the matchup 5-3, and in their district, they've already defeated, Inglewood. So if they beat Riverside, then this is for the district championship for them. So, great season once again by Coach, LJ over there at Ed White at 5-3. Chandler, their only loss early in the season was to Trinity Christian. I mean, they beat Westside, Inglewood, Parker, but Trinity got them, and kind of the same thing that you saw with Trinity. They kind of got mixed up with that switching of quarterbacks and kind of running the ball up the middle. How effective has Trinity been when you saw them with switching the quarterbacks in and out?
Yeah, so if you kind of look at it and you're studying for that game, studying film, that team, another team, their opponent studying film that week of, I mean, it's kind of hard to make a plan for 2 quarterbacks that are going in and out of the offense. And I think that's pretty efficient for Trinity, and they have that, both good quarterbacks that are pretty similar, and it's kind of hard for a defense to pick that up. You don't know when the other quarterback's going to come in, and I think that's good for Trinity with the athletes they have this year and the team they have this year. I think that's pretty good for them, and I think they can keep rolling if they keep doing that.
Yeah, that's a great point because see, Ed White struggled with that. That's what they kind of struggle with the different quarterbacks coming, in and out. Like we said, Ed White lost that first game of the season to them 21-18. Ed White's opponent for the district championship, Riverside, actually beat Trinity back at the beginning of October 4th, beat them 28-21. And the strange part about it, Chandler, is that's kind of what Riverside does. Riverside will rotate quarterbacks in and out. So, the same thing that Ed White had trouble with Trinity and lost, Riverside was able to beat Trinity and kind of does the same thing. They bring in Glenn Foreman in at quarterback, Jaden DeLon. They bring him in at quarterback. And so, it seems like it might have trouble with that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you saw that first game against Trinity, and it was a pretty close one. It was only pulled up here. Yeah, Trinity won 21-18 against Ed White, and then you see Riverside beat Trinity 28-21. Both are close games, 1-point games. I think it would be a pretty good game. I think Ed White we'll see that coming. Is watching that film and studying the two quarterbacks. Not sure when they're both going to go in, and I think Ed White should focus on that. What should they do for their defense? And I think that would be a pretty good matchup if they pick that up.
If you could pull up Ed White's stats, for a second, I'm going to talk about, Riverside right now. Like I mentioned earlier, Glenn Foreman, he leads them in passing with 1,185 yards passing, 12 passing touchdowns, just 4 picks on the season. And Jaden DeLon has 372 yards passing and 6 touchdowns passing. So, they have that kind of dual quarterback. Depending on scenarios, they'll bring him in. But this is the guy that really does lead Riverside on the ground, and that's I call him General Sherman Davis. He has 908 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns this year. Just bulldozing teams, and those are real impressive numbers. And they are star-studded at wide receiver. Of course, they have their Florida commit, Tayshawn Gelsey. He leads them in receiving with 644 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns. He's unstoppable. So, he's one of them. They also have Miles Kendrick, who has 427 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as Xavier Hilliard, who is also a big-time receiver for them. So, they can really put up points. They showed that against St. Augustine. They put up points. They put up points against Reigns. Both were losses, but they put up points. Riverside's question mark is their defense. They can't stop anybody. And so, who on offense does it look like that could challenge this Riverside team?
Yeah, you got the young King Bolston over 1,000 yards this season. He's doing great, and then you got the Landon Francis, the receiver. He's got almost 500, 467 yards on the season, and then for rushing, you got Joseph Williams. He's a junior, and he has 480 yards. Total touchdowns, Landon Francis is leading with 7 touchdowns. I think if you got some guys like that, King Bolston, really young athlete, which has been showing his skill this past year, and then King Bolston transferring over to Ed White, being under Colin Hurley this past 2 years. I think that kind of helped him out a lot, and then him switching over to Ed White, taking over the offense. He's done a pretty good job this season.
Yeah, he really has, man. That's some great insight on the young King, man. Really like the way that he slings the ball. I think he's definitely an added presence to that Ed White offense. And even Landon Francis, who came over from Reebok, is somebody that's been in the passing game. They have Iowa State commit, Josh Patterson, probably one of the, if not the best defensive back in Northeast Florida, who patrols us out, and he also gets in on offense as well.
Yeah.
So they will have to account for Patterson. And if I was Ed White, I would not hold back this game. Last year, Riverside beat them for the district championship when everybody thought that Ed White was supposed to win. This year, I think everybody is thinking Riverside is going to win this game, so Ed White can surprise them, but they have to use all of their weapons, every
Yeah.
last one of them,
All
to
four
try to
quarters.
get that win. All right,
For sure.
let's move on to our last game. Oakleaf and Mandarin. Oh my gosh, man, this is going to be a big one. Both teams come in at 6-2. Both teams are really smash mouth football teams. We didn't think Mandarin would be a smash mouth football team, but as the season has played out with them with the injuries, they have really leaned on their rushing attack, and so has Oakleaf. Let's start with Mandarin, and their only two losses have been to Bradford and IMG Academy. So they haven't lost in Northeast Florida, really. I mean, Bradford is kind of Northeast Florida, so I'll give them that.
Yeah.
We cover Bradford, but Clay County, Duval, St. John's, they haven't lost. But like you said, that was a surprising score against Fletcher. Fletcher always plays them pretty tough,
Yeah.
but still, you expect them to really, beat Fletcher. What do you feel like Mandarin needs to do to get back on track?
I think Mandarin needs to figure out their offense and figure out what they're gonna do each week. I mean, it seems like it's switching up every week. Jamie French in and out, getting hurt, and their quarterback in and out, or he had his injury season ending. Um, and you put that freshman in there. He started off pretty good, but he's getting a little shaky there at the end, so that's why they're kind of having trouble at the quarterback position. I think if they figure that out, I'm not sure how their practice went Monday through Thursday, but if they figured that out, I think it would be a really good game against Oakley. But if they played like last week without, you can see what they do without Jamie French. That was a pretty close game last week. Jamie French didn't play that game, and Oakleaf, their offense is good. You got Chris Boy, the second over there. I mean, he rushes, he does his thing every single game, and I think if Mandarin doesn't have their offense figured out, that Oakleaf defense can get the job done and come out with the win.
Yeah, that freshman quarterback for Mandarin is Knox Ennis. He has 768 passing yards. Again, he stepped in for the four-star Florida State commit Tramel Jones,
Yep.
who went out with an injury. I believe the third game of the season. So Knox has filled in. So they'll definitely have to be more than a one-dimensional team in order to beat Oakleaf. Their leading rusher is Dion Winstead, and he has 631 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. But it's really almost like a 3-4-headed monster. There's Sean Quez Foster, 563 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. So both of them have 4 touchdowns on the season and are over 500 yards of rushing. Knox can also run it.
Yeah.
And I said this earlier about Mandarin is they'll have to rely on their defense. And that's something that they have. I mean, think about it. They shut out Fletcher, right?
hmm
So we can't sleep on Mandarin's defense. That they can really put the wood to people.
Yeah.
Kimari Spriggs leads them in tackles with 73. Then of course you got Cam Mills, who was one of their leading tacklers. Um, um, Israel Ratliff is one of their star linebackers. And then, of course, they have a 5-star safety back there in Drake Stubbs, the University of Miami commit. They're really loaded on that back end with Sharif Jackson. He's one of their top defensive backs. I love Tamaj Mitchell. A lot of people don't know him, but man, he does everything. He's one of the best ones. He returns kicks in the kick game. Then, of course, there's Brody Jennings, the 4-star University of Michigan commit. So, I mean, Mandarin is just stacked. So even though their offense is struggling, their defense will always keep them in games.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's move over to Oakleaf, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but man, Christopher Foy, the son of the head coach, is powering Dad's team. I mean, he has, like you said, 1,077 yards rushing, and 11 touchdowns. You've seen Oakleaf in person. Talk about Deuce and Christopher Foy and his running style.
Yeah, if you go out there and watch an Oakleaf game, you're going to see that Chris Foy's going to get the ball, and he's hard to get down. You have to have 3 to 4 players to get him down when he has a good run, and that's pretty efficient for high school. He's a big guy, and he's a great running back, and he can do great. I mean, he's a big dude, and it's hard. I know Mandarin's defense is pretty good, but if you got a guy like Chris Foy, which they've probably been working on in this past week in practice, is working on his running game, and a guy like him, he can do a lot to the opponent's defense.
Yeah, and they're not one-dimensional at all. I mean, Jack McKissick has passed for 1,818 yards on the season, 18 touchdowns, 3 picks. So he's been slinging it to Carlos Withrop, who leads them with 460 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns. Carlos actually came over from Mandarin, was at Oakleaf the year before that, went over to Mandarin, and is now back at Oakleaf. So, I know that's going to be a very intense game for him because he's going to want to prove that they made a mistake not bringing him back over to Mandarin.
Yep.
And one of my favorite players is Mike Connor of Oakleaf. They call him Mike. He is electrifying, man, Chandler. He returns kicks. He has 427 yards receiving, 3 receiving touchdowns. I would, if I were Oakleaf, I would roll him out in the running game too.
Yeah.
You do like a change of pace from, like you said, Christopher Foy, because he's just that good. And they have Jordan Price in the receiving core as well, who has three receiving touchdowns. So they can do really good. Take a look at Oakleaf's schedule and tell me some of the teams that you feel like that were impressive wins for them. I believe I know that they played Bowls. I'm not sure. Were you at that game?
Yeah, I was at that game. That was the over 100 points scored, 57-50 win from Bowls there. That was a crazy game, back and forth the whole time.
So see, they can put up points, right? Even though they're kind of a bruising team, they can score quick, and they showed it in a game that you covered.
Yeah. So they also beat Fleming Island back in a few months ago, 17-14, which is pretty impressive. Close game as well. Coming out the first game of the season being in Riverside, 35-7. They beat Fletcher 40-12, which Mandarin played last week, and then the last game they had Ed White and beat them 28-14. They had that little stretch, Hawthorne. I've never seen them play. Don't know much about them, but lost them 27-21, and then lost Bowls 57-50. If you look at their losses, I mean, it's a good game they've had. Both losses were very close. One touchdown to win it. I mean, they put up hard battles.
Yeah, and Hawthorne, of course, is a two-time defending state champion. So for them to lose to them, and they lost to them on a Hail Mary. So
Wasn't
yeah, so that just kind of lets you know how powerful this team is.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the guys on their defense, man. Brian Copeland leads them in tackles, along with Jermaine Robinson and Amari Thomas. Just tackling machines, man.
Yep.
Really, just putting the work to teams. Really fortifying that front and making sure that teams aren't able to really get off on them. Also, Anthony Smith has done a great job. He leads them in sacks. Man, he's got 12 sacks on the season.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. And the Mari has 11.5.
Wow.
That's a good line right there.
Yeah. So that's one thing about a Christopher Ford team. I mean, they're going to rack it up with the defensive stats. Caleb Singleton is on that team. Caleb, of course, is a big-time, recruit here in the area. His brother was a highly recruited player. He's at Florida State. So Caleb is in that, secondary. And, they've got some other people that's in that secondary too. Jordan Price has a pick. He also, of course, plays wide receiver. And Tyrone Early is a one who has a pick as well. And he's a big-time player for them, too. So, not as many big-time names as Mandarin, but this is really going to be probably when you have I would say this is probably the one game, Chandler, that has the most well-rounded players on each side of the ball.
Agreed.
We've seen teams like a Reigns who is just dominant all the way across the board, but we haven't seen Reigns play another dominant team like Mandarin. We've seen them play some tough competition, but we haven't seen it. This is kind of the first game where, you have all of these players versus all of these players, So I'm really intrigued to see how this one is going to play out. Now, do you want to give a prediction?
Let's see. I don't got a score prediction, but I think Oakleaf's going to come out with this win. I mean, with that defense, and then Mandarin still figuring out their offense. I think that defense can take that advantage and win that game with a good offense and the good defense they have.
Oh man, you heard it here, y'all. A shocker, man. Picking the upset. Oakleaf with the upset at versus Mandarin. So, I will say I picked Oakleaf to beat Bowles, and I got let down. So, but Mandarin is having some issues at quarterback. That's tough. At the end of the day, I have not seen Oakleaf handle business against a good team. They lost to Hawthorne. They lost to Bowles. Ed White they beat, but Ed White's kind of like the second tier, not the first tier. Mandarin's the first tier, so I'm gonna go with Mandarin. So we'll check back next week and see if I owe you some Georgia made sauce, man. So
it'll be a good game, whoever wins.
Yeah. So before we go, man, tell everybody where you're going tomorrow.
Yeah, so I'm going to go to the Fleming Middleburg game, little Clay County rivalry game going on there. going to be at Middleburg at 7.
That's going to be a big time game. Those teams do not like each other.
Mm-mm.
The fans don't like each other.
Mhm.
I mean that is a real down home rivalry there, man. So that's exciting. I'm going to be at Paxton tomorrow. It's going to be Paxton and Reball. You know, two teams that we really haven't covered this year. So I'm gonna show them some love tomorrow. Paxton and Reball. We'll also have somebody at the Takoi Creek game. I believe Takoi. Who?
Nice, right?
Yeah, Nice.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Takoi and Nice. We'll also have someone, of course, at Oakleaf and Mandarin, and we'll have somebody at the Ed White and Riverside game. So go to duvalsports.com, read the stories, follow us on social media at Duval Sports on Twitter. Well, it's X now,
Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok, all of it, Facebook, all of it. So thank y'all so much for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe, comment. And we just really appreciate the support. So, man, when the playoffs come, I got to cover a game with you, man, because I want to be on the drone challenge.
For sure, that'll be real fun.
All right, man. Hey, man. So we're gonna sign off, man. We will catch y'all at the games tomorrow. And once again, thanks for tuning in, y'all.